Imagine building the absolute perfect machine. You're meticulously assembling every single piece, tuning the engine, getting it ready for the grand reveal, and then out of nowhere, a single blown gasket threatens to grind the entire operation to a catastrophic halt. We're dropping right into the incredibly tense, high-stakes reality of the 2026 Houston Texans offseason. This is a story of aggressive, calculated roster building colliding violently with the completely unpredictable nature of training camp injuries. And let's be real, this isn't just about shuffling a depth chart or making standard mid-August adjustments. Not at all. This is about a coaching staff that bet heavy on a master plan to completely overhaul their team identity, and the sudden, cascading setbacks that are currently putting that exact plan in grave jeopardy. So we are going to break down the sheer magnitude of what Houston is trying to build here, and the unexpected void that honestly threatens to unravel it before the regular season even kicks off.
So what does this all mean for the team right now? Well, it starts with the most cinematic and frankly terrifying question any head coach can face in the National Football League. How do you fix a broken offense? You don't just tweak the edges, right? You have to diagnose the rot at the foundation and surgically remove it. Coach DeMeco Ryans had to confront a massive, glaring problem before this 2026 season even started. Now you have to remember, as a defensive-minded head coach, Ryans inherently despises an offense that cannot control the clock. It drives him crazy. He knows firsthand that when your offense can't sustain long drives, your defense is just left exhausted and completely exposed out there on the field. The Texans came into this year with sky-high aspirations. They have their franchise quarterback in place and a defense that could absolutely hold its own. But there was a fatal flaw in their offensive architecture, a flaw that simply could not be ignored if they wanted to actually compete for a championship. Put simply, they were fundamentally broken on the ground.
And the reality of that brokenness is crystallized in one brutal statistic: bottom 10. The Houston Texans ranked in the bottom 10 rushing offenses in the entire NFL during the 2025 season. Think about what that actually means on the field. When you operate in the bottom 10 of the league in rushing, you are essentially playing with one hand tied behind your back. You cannot dictate the pace of the game, you cannot effectively close out leads in the fourth quarter when everyone in the stadium knows you need to run the ball, and worst of all, you allow opposing pass rushers to just pin their ears back and tee off on your quarterback because they literally never have to respect the threat of the run. It forces an offense into these highly predictable third and long situations, which, as we all know, is an absolute death sentence against elite NFL defenses. This glaring weakness provided the crucial context for everything DeMeco Ryans in the front office did next. They weren't looking for a simple Band-Aid. They were looking for a battering ram.
Which leads us directly to the strategic masterstroke of the offseason, the David Montgomery trade. Houston sent multiple Day 3 draft picks, along with interior lineman Juice Scruggs, to the Detroit Lions to acquire the veteran running back. Now, this was a massive statement of intent, and you really have to understand the weight of what Houston gave up here. Juice Scruggs wasn't just some throwaway depth piece. He was a promising young interior lineman they had incredibly high hopes for, a recent Day 2 draft investment. You do not trade away tangible assets in a young potential starter like Scruggs unless you absolutely believe the return is going to fundamentally alter the DNA of your football team. David Montgomery wasn't brought in to be a rotational guy or a situational runner. No way. He was brought in to be the violent, tone-setting enforcer this offense so desperately lacked in 2025. It signaled an immense, palpable urgency to win right now. Just listen to the absolute conviction from DeMeco Ryans when he was on Texans radio talking about exactly what Montgomery brings to the table. He said, "I see David as a number one back. He's of course shared that load in the backfield, but has always been another guy who's ahead of him getting those lead reps. I see him as a leader, a passionate guy who brings fire to the game, brings that fire that we need." Now, what's really interesting here is that Ryans isn't just praising his physical traits. He is specifically targeting Montgomery's psychology. He values the leadership, the passion, and the absolute fire that Montgomery plays with. This is all about changing the entire culture of the offensive huddle. It's about bringing a hardened, veteran edge that demands accountability and sets a very physical standard for every single other player on that roster. Now, if you are sitting there thinking Montgomery is coming to Houston on the decline, the underlying metrics tell a completely different story. 4.5. That is the number of yards per carry David Montgomery averaged in 2025. Yeah, sure, he had a dip in overall volume. He logged 158 carries for 716 yards and 8 touchdowns, which, to be fair, were his lowest marks since 2022. But we have to look at the context here. He was sharing the field with the ridiculously explosive Jahmyr Gibbs over in Detroit. Despite that reduction in overall touches, Montgomery's efficiency was downright elite. In fact, he has topped 4.0 yards per carry for 4 straight years now. He is a relentless, highly efficient machine. He runs low, he runs behind his pads, and he constantly falls forward. He practically refuses to go down on first contact, churning out those hidden, dirty yards that keep an offense on schedule and completely wear down a defensive front over 4 long quarters.
The immediate impact of this trade is profound because it reveals the Texans' ultimate offensive design, recreating the Lions' magic right there in Houston. Detroit essentially laid out the blueprint for modern NFL offensive dominance by utilizing a devastating two-headed monster in the backfield. You see, the league right now is shifting heavily back toward physical, punishing run games. Why? Because they need to counter those light, too-high safety shells that defenses are deploying everywhere to stop the deep pass. So by acquiring Montgomery, Houston isn't just getting a good football player. They are aggressively importing a proven, winning schematic philosophy. They're looking to build a dominant backfield tandem that keeps defenses completely off balance, completely unable to substitute properly, and constantly bracing for a physical impact they simply cannot handle for a full 60 minutes.
And this brilliantly illustrates that this isn't just outside media speculation. Ryans himself confirmed the blueprint. He came right out and stated, "We saw the success that the Lions had with Gibbs and with DeMeco. Hopefully we get some of the same results that they were able to show." I mean, that is the stated, undeniable goal. Ryans watched the tape, he saw exactly how Detroit weaponized Montgomery's power to dictate the terms of engagement, and he decided, I need that exact same element to unlock my own offense. It's a copycat league, guys. When you see a formula that punishes defenses that severely, leading to deep playoff runs and incredible sustained offensive efficiency, what do? You go out and you buy the ingredients to make it yourself.
So let's break down exactly how this tandem works by comparing the two situations side by side. In Detroit, it was Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Now in Houston, it's Woody Marks and David Montgomery. Montgomery is the thunder. He is the absolute perfect power complement to the speed and explosion that Woody Marks brings to the field. Think about it. When you have a runner who can hit the edge with lightning speed like Marks, linebackers have to flow incredibly fast to the perimeter to stop him. But then, when you sub in Montgomery and he starts running downhill right at their face masks, it literally breaks a defense's will. And crucially, this specific dynamic protects their franchise quarterback. By forcing defenses to stack the box to stop that physical run, it completely opens up the play-action pass. It gives the quarterback cleaner pockets, much wider throwing lanes, and easy completions. Houston simply did not have this change-of-pace power last year, and it is going to make them exponentially harder to defend in 2026.
But, just as the hype around this new powerhouse backfield reaches a fever pitch, the harsh reality of an NFL training camp strikes. We have to pivot the narrative here to a massive complication, because a really brutal question is now hanging over this entire team. Can a dominant run game survive a sudden, drastic passing game setback? Because right at the exact moment Houston is solidifying their ground attack, their wide receiver room is taking a massive, debilitating hit. The offense they envisioned back in May is suddenly not the offense they are fielding right now in August. The master plan is encountering some really severe turbulence. To truly understand the gravity of this setback, you have to understand the vacuum that was created earlier in the offseason. The Christian Kirk void. Kirk departed for the San Francisco 49ers, which instantly opened up a massive number of crucial slot receiver reps. And we all know the slot is the absolute safety blanket for a quarterback, right? It is the vital hub where third downs are converted, where hot routes are executed to beat the blitz, and where drives are kept alive under intense pressure. Now, Kirk's departure wasn't actually seen as a disaster initially. Why? Because it was entirely expected to open the door for a massive second-year breakout from a young player who had been patiently waiting in the wings. But now, that entire succession plan is collapsing, creating a terrible cascading problem for the entire offensive ecosystem.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, because how this vacuum was supposed to be filled has become incredibly frustrating. We're talking about Jaylen Noel, the Texans' third-round pick from 2025. Just look at this progression. In its 2025 rookie season, he played all 17 games. He caught 26 passes for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus he handled 60 combined kick and punt returns. He was durable, he was versatile, and he was absolutely primed for more. Then, the early offseason hits. Christian Kirk leaves, basically clearing the runway for Noel to completely dominate the slot. But then, early camp hits. Noel lands on the non-football injury list with a right pinky finger issue. Okay, not great, but he finally gets activated, he starts working off to the side to get his conditioning back, and then absolute disaster strikes in mid-camp. Aaron Wilson reports that Noel suffers a brand new hamstring injury. Just as he was expected to take a massive leap forward, his body betrayed him. This is costing him invaluable, irreplaceable developmental time that a young receiver simply cannot afford to lose.
Now, of course, the coaching staff is trying their best to project calm through the storm. Wide receivers coach Ben McDaniels addressed the situation this past weekend, stating, "I expect him, when he hits the grass, to be ready to roll. He's extremely diligent with his preparation and being ready to go when he's going to be healthy." It's definitely a strong endorsement of Noel's mental makeup and his study habits. The team clearly still trusts his preparation deeply. But guys, if you read between the lines here, the reality is stark. You cannot replicate the speed, the intricate timing, and the physical chemistry of an NFL passing game by just looking at a playbook on an iPad. You just can't. A multi-week absence for a young receiver who was slated to take over a starting slot role is a devastating loss of live-fire experience. It absolutely threatens his readiness for Week 1.
And there are immediate, severe consequences to this. Hamstring injuries are notoriously tricky. They linger, they are easily re-aggravated, and they require a highly cautious multi-week timeline for recovery. This means Noel is going to suffer massive preseason opportunities lost. He is already confirmed to be completely out for the critical live game reps against the Las Vegas Raiders on Thursday in Houston, and he's out against the Carolina Panthers on the road the following Friday. For a young receiver who is trying to lock down a starting job, adjust to a heavily increased target share, and build that unspoken critical chemistry with his quarterback under pressure, missing these live reps is a massive blow. It delays his entire integration into the starting offense, and it forces the coaching staff to scramble right now for immediate solutions.
So the crucial point is, exactly how does this domino effect alter the roster right this second? Well, Christian Kirk's departure left the target share wide open. Jalen Noel, the heir apparent, is now sidelined for a few weeks. This means second-year wideout Jaden Higgins is expected to take an even larger leap in production, absorbing a much heavier load on the outside. But perhaps the most fascinating development to watch through all of this is the sudden emergence of Lewis Bond. The sixth-round rookie has been really excelling in the slot during camp. He's making plays and he's rapidly gaining trust. Because of Noel's terrible luck, Bond is suddenly primed to get a massive influx of premium reps with the starting units. This right here is the brutal, unforgiving reality of the NFL. One man's devastating setback is the exact launchpad for a rookie's entire career.
Which brings us to the ultimate season-defining question. Will Houston's new backfield powerhouse be enough to carry the offense while the receiving core heals? With the passing game continuity taking such a major hit and these young receivers being forced to grow up fast, the immense pressure now falls squarely on the broad shoulders of David Montgomery and the lightning-fast legs of Woody Marks. Can they be the dominant engine that dictates the clock, protects the quarterback, and keeps his team afloat through the grueling month of September? It is a fascinating collision of brilliant offseason strategy and terrible training camp luck. And it's a storyline that will absolutely define the early weeks of the 2026 season. Make sure you subscribe to NFL Nexus, hit that like button, and jump down into the comments to let me know your opinion. Can the Texans survive this wide receiver injury? And if you really want to support the channel, consider becoming a member so you never miss a critical update as this massive story continues to develop.